Study Session 4, Greek Political Ideas Before Plato. Introduction. In this study session, you will learn about the philosophical outlook and worldview of the Greeks before the emergence of Plato. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Note what constitutes popular political discussions. 2. Identify harmony as the ultimate principle of order in nature and society. 3. Differentiate between nature and convention. 4. Identify Socrates as the personal agency by which suggestive ideas were turned into explicit philosophy. 5. Define virtue. 1. Public concerns and the conduct of public affairs. These were the great topics of interest. The Athenians lived in an atmosphere of oral discussion and conversation which is difficult for modern man to imagine. It is certain that every sort of interesting political question was actively canvassed by the curious and inquiring minds of Athenian citizens. Comparative government. The Greek was almost forced to think of what would now be called comparative government. Throughout the length and breadth of the Greek world, he found a great variety of political institutions, all indeed of the city-state type, but still capable of very great differences. At very least, there was one contrast which every Athenian must have heard discussed from the time he was old enough to follow conversation at all. That between Athens and Sparta, the types of the progressive and the conservative state, or of the democratic and aristocratic state, then in the east there was always the terrible shadow of Persia, which could never be long out of any Greek's consciousness. As his travels took him still farther afield to Egypt, to the western part of the Mediterranean, to Carthage, to the tribes of the Asiatic hinterland, he found continually new material for comparison. In Herodotus' very unphilosophical book, 800 BC, there is one rather startling bit of evidence of the length to which popular thought in Greece had gone in theorizing about government. This is the passage in which 7 Persians were represented as discussing the relative merits of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Most of the stock arguments appear. The monarch tends to degenerate into a tyrant, while democracy makes all men equal before the law. But democracy readily becomes mob rule, and a government by the best men is certainly preferable. And nothing can be better than the rule of the one best man. This, no doubt, is an echo of the philosopher king which Plato later came to idolize, as we shall see in session 5. This standard classification of the forms of government then was a bit of popular theorizing long antedating anything known as political philosophy. When it occurs in Plato and Aristotle, it is already a commonplace which need not be taken seriously. 2. Order in nature and society, harmony, proportion. Active thought and discussion of political and social questions preceded explicit political theory. Isolated political ideas of more or less importance in themselves were matters of common knowledge before Plato tried to incorporate them in a well-rounded philosophy. However, there were also certain general conceptions, not exclusively political in their nature, but forming a kind of intellectual point of view, within which political thought developed and which for the first time it made explicit. The fundamental thought in the Greek idea of the state was the harmony of a life shared in common by all its members. The part which ideas of harmony and proportion played in Greek conceptions, both of beauty and of morals, has been too often emphasized to need repeating. Those ideas appeared at the very beginning of Greek philosophy. Harmony or proportion, if one prefers. Justice is an ultimate principle in all the earliest attempts at a theory of the physical world. The sun will not overstep its measures, said Heraclitus. If it does, the Aries, the handmaids of justice, will find him out. The Pythagorean philosophy in particular regarded harmony or proportion as a basic principle in music, in medicine, in physics, and in politics. In a figure of speech that still persists in English, justice is described as a square number. This regard for measure or proportion as an ethical quality is registered in the famous proverb, nothing too much. 3. Nature and convention. Nature was used synonymously with the law of God and convention with the existing laws of society. This identification of nature with the law of God and the contrast of convention with the truly right was destined to become almost a formula for criticism of abuses, a role which the law of nature has appeared to play again and again in the later history of political thought. In this role, the contrast occurs also in Euripides, who uses it to deny the validity of social distinction based on birth. It might, of course, as frequently as it has done since, from the defense of the rebel in the name of the higher law against the standing conventions and existing laws of the society. The classical instance of this theme in Greek literature is the Antigone of Sophocles. Perhaps the first time that an artist exploited the conflict between a duty to human law and a duty to the law of God. The critical Athenian of the 5th century BC was quite aware that its society had its silly side, and the critic was adventitious distinctions of convention. In Antiphon's book on truth, he asserted flatly that all human societal law is merely conventional and hence contrary to nature. Socrates, virtue and precision. Socrates, the personal agency by which suggestive ideas were turned into explicit philosophy was Socrates, and curiously enough, all the possibilities were equally indebted to him. Unlike the sophists, however, he carried into his humanism the rational tradition of the older physical philosophy. This is the meaning of the doctrine most characteristically imputed to him: the belief that virtue is knowledge and so can be learned and taught, and also of the method which Aristotle attributes to him, the pursuit of precise definition. For it is the mark of an educated man to look for precision in each class of things just so far as the nature of the subject admits. Aristotle, Nicomachean Ethics. Forgiving these two, the discovery of a valid general rule of action is possible, and imparting it by means of education is practicable. Put differently, if ethical concepts can be defined, A scientific application may then be used to bring about and maintain a society of demonstrable excellence. Social engineering. It is this vision of a rational, demonstrable science of politics which Plato, the student of Socrates, pursued throughout his life, as we shall see in Unit 5. Virtue is one of the activities of the soul. Things that are found in soul are of three kinds. A. Passion, appetite, anger, fear, confidence, envy, joy, friendly feeling, hatred, longing, emulation, pity, and in general the feelings that are accompanied by pleasure or feeling pity. B. Faculties. The things in virtue of which we are said to be capable of feeling this. Example, of becoming angry or being pained or feeling pity. C. State of character. The things in virtue of which we stand well or badly with reference to the passions. Example, with reference to anger we stand badly if we feel it violently or too weakly, and well if we feel it moderately, and similarly with reference to the other passions. Now, virtue is concerned with passions and actions in which excess is a form of failure, and so is defect, while intermediate is praise and is a form of success, and being praised and being successful are both characteristics of virtue. Therefore, virtue is a kind of means since it aims at that which is intermediate. Intermediate means that which is equidistant from each of the extremes, which is one and the same for all men. Intermediate relative to us means that which is neither too much nor too little, and this is neither one nor the same for all. Virtue, then, is a state of character concerned with choice, lying in a need. The need relative to us, this being determined by a rational principle, and by that principle by which the man of practical wisdom will determine it. Conjugation of virtue. Virtue concerned with intercourse of passion and action. Passion, action. Defect, deficiency. Excess, need, virtue. Confidence and fear, cowardice. Rashness, courage, pleasure and pain. Insensible, self-indulgence, temperance and fortitude. Giving and taking of money, small amount. Meanness, prodigy, liberality. Giving and taking of money, big amount. Niggardliness, tastelessness, vulgarity, magnificence, honor, dishonor and undone humility, empty vanity, proper pride, anger, irascible, good-tempered. Virtue concerned with words and actions, defects and deficiencies, excess, need, virtue, truth, mock modesty, boastfulness, truthfulness, pleasantness, in giving amusement, boorishness, buffoonery, ready-wit, pleasantness, in life in general, quarrelsome, surely, obsequious, flatterer, friendly, shame, shamelessness, bashfulness, modest, envy and spite, righteous indignation. From the tables above, we can conclude that there are three kinds of dispositions, then two of them vices, involving deficiency and excess respectively, and one a virtue. namely the me, and all are in a sense opposed to all, for the extreme states are contrary both to the intermediate state and to each other, and intermediate to the extremes. 5.2. Kinds of virtue. Virtue is of two kinds, namely A. Intellectual virtue. This is based on teaching, education. B. Moral virtue comes about as a result of habit, legislation. From this, it is also plain that none of the moral virtues arises in us by nature, for nothing that exists by nature can form a habit contrary to its nature, neither by nature, then nor contrary to nature do the virtue arise in us. Rather, we are adapted by nature to receive them and made perfect by habit. Again, of all the things that come to us by nature, we first acquire the potentialities and later exhibit the activity. For this is plain in the case of the senses, for it was not by often seeing or often hearing that we get these senses, but on the contrary we had them before we used them, and did not come to have them by using them. For things we have to learn before we do them, we learn by doing. Legislators make citizens good by forming habits in them. 6. The general philosophical outlook of Athens in the period before Plato. In the eyes of the Greek thinkers, the political problem was to discover what place each kind or class of men merited in a wholesome society, so constituted that all the significant sorts of social work could go on. This is the ideal of harmony. For the Greeks, therefore, the city was life in common. Its constitution was a mode of life rather than a legal structure, and consequently the fundamental thought in all Greek political theory was the harmony of this common life. The theory of the city-state was at once ethics, sociology, and economics, as well as politics in the narrower modern sense. No man was born to office, and no man bought office by an equal opportunity. He was sifted down to the position to which his natural gifts entitled him. The ideal of a common life in which all might actively share presupposed an optimistic estimate of the natural political capacity of the average man. Ideal of harmony was persistently a part of Greek political thought, harmonious common life in which it should be the chief joy of every citizen to have a part remains the guiding thought in Greek political theory. The purpose of law is to find for every man his place, his station, his functions in the total life of the city. Of what use is property except to enable a man to enjoy that higher good which comes from having an active share in the city's life? Family and friends and property are to be at their best only if they form elements in the supreme good, which consists in having a place in the life and activities of the city itself. Civic harmony and the life in common from two political values, freedom and respect for law, since all of a man's activities were pretty intimately connected with his citizenship. Since his religion was the religion of the state, and his art very largely a civic art, there could be no very sharp separation of this question. The good man must be a good citizen. A good man could hardly exist except in a good state, and it would be idle to discuss what was good for the man without considering also what was good for the city. Study session summary. In this study session, you have learned that 1. Interesting political questions have been actively canvassed by the curious and inquiring minds of Athenian citizens before the rise of Plato. 2. The fundamental thought in the Greek idea of the state was the harmony of the life shared in common by all its members. 3. Nature was used synonymously with the law of God and convention with the existing laws of the society. 4. Virtue is a state of character concerned with choice lying in a need. End of study session 4. Thank you for listening.